Diapers on a plane. My favorite family activity in Boston was the candlepin bowling ball. Whoop, there goes the bowling ball. My favorite thing was that Curious George toy store.
Why did you like it?
Because they had all the books and I bought one.
My favorite family fun activity in Boston was actually the Boston Red Sox. And we did not go see a Boston Red Sox game, but see, what happened was I actually won tickets for a Boston Red Sox game. And I was like, we'll go if we get a chance. And then we never did. We didn't really make an effort to go do it. And when we got there, we went by the Red Sox stadium. And it was just palpable, like just the energy and the excitement and the fervor and everything. And I knew I had made a huge mistake. So someday we're going to have to go back, participate in a Red Sox game, get in on all the action and the fun, and make it happen.
My favorite family activity at Boston was the duck tour.
My favorite activity in Boston is MFA, the Museum of Fine Arts, because I feel obligated as an artist, and I would feel guilty if I said otherwise.
Are you ready to learn all about the family fun in Boston? Let's get started.
So last week we talked to you all about our favorite places to eat in Boston.
So good. Food.
And this week we're going to wrap up our time in Boston and we're going to talk all about our favorite family fun activities. And we did quite a few. Boston is a awesome place to go world school. It's an awesome place to visit as a family. And it's just all around a really fun, family-friendly place to visit.
Yep, so full of rich history. Boston is incredible. So we'll jump right into the top of our list. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast in the intro, the MFA had a huge impact on the family. Art museums are always on the top of our list to go visit.
Yeah, the MFA was just so incredibly rich and beautiful. They had works of art from Rembrandt and Van Gogh and Monet, and I am definitely not an art historian. I didn't study art. Gabriel over here is definitely the master in that, but you don't have to be an art historian to appreciate all the incredible pieces of art there, and every picture has a history and an information about it, so you can learn so much about it and when it was painted. They had a lot of sculptures and they had a lot of artifacts. I remember they even had an old Quran there at the museum. So it was just really chock full of just so many really interesting.
Yeah, a lot of paintings from the Enlightenment period, like a huge historical venue for taking your kids. I think it's a museum, so that there's I don't know how in depth we can go about that, right? There were a lot of paintings, sculptures, all the stuff you'd expect, but they had a really top-notch curation. Definitely worth your time. I'd say that's, other than the Freedom Trail, that's at the top of the list that I would say for world schooling activity is go to the Museum of Fine Art.
And one of the fun things is we had one of the curators come over and talk to our family and visit with us, and they really engaged with the children, and we were in this long hall, I remember, and there were a lot of paintings, and the curator talked to our kids and they said, will you go down the hall and count how many pieces of bread you see in these photos? And so our kids loved it. They loved going down and being like, I found this many. And then one of our other kids would say, well, I found this many. And then the curator would say, okay, that's great. Now, can you find how many pieces of, another item that you can find? And then that would prompt our children to ask questions because they would be looking at the pictures in greater detail and more in depth to find out what they were seeing. So that's a great tip to use, just on your own travels. You don't have to have a curator come up and make these suggestions for you. It's just one of the fun things that you can do. And the Museum of Fine Arts is really interesting in that it's not just a stuffy museum that you go and you look at the art and you leave. They have a cafeteria there. They had this whole
that's right.
entry. They had this big kind of like courtyard there in the center of it. And our children were able to do art. They had these little copper pieces of art papers.
Yeah,
and,
so they were able to do etchings on
Yeah.
these little copper plates. They had a was it a salsa band?
yeah, they had
there?
salsa
Or,
dancers,
yeah.
and the kids were everybody was invited to come up and dance.
So really fun place to visit.
Yeah, lots of singers and dancers and actual salsa dancers and decked out clothes, and it was so fun. So it was just really a really lively place to go, and lots of things to do and see, not just the art to see.
Yep.
It was more of a place to experience, not just see. You could really be a part of it.
So like we said, like the Museum of Fine Arts and then the Freedom Trail, such an educational point, and that such a great way to tour the city is the Freedom Trail. However, a really fun way to tour the city as well is the duck tours. And we had seen, did we hear about them before our trip?
Yeah, duck tour. Yeah, we knew about the duck tours.
Okay.
And one thing that we thought was great about the duck tour is that it gives you a lot of kind of background that actually kind of gives you some information before you go on the Freedom Trail. So that's what we would recommend is go on your duck tour, get the history, do it in a more leisurely way where you can listen. Then you can take that information that you learned and then kind of put it into use while you explore the sites on the Freedom Trail.
Yep. So the duck tour is a tour via amphibious cars.
The DUW, that's like the call sign for the car.
I think so. There were these amphibious cars that they used in World War II. And they've upkept them and they use them for these tours.
We took one in Australia, remember, when we went to the
we
rainforest?
did. That's true, yeah.
So this was actually our second time on a duck, and we loved it. And one of the things that made it so great was that our tour guide was actually from the future. And she came back
that's right.
to tell us all about this point in history because she was a historian and she got stuck in our time because her time traveling vehicle broke. And she did let us know, even though she couldn't give us the exact dates, that our society is very close to discovering time travel. So we're just like waiting on the edge of our seat when this is going to come out.
Totally forgot about that. And this girl was 200% committed to her role. Like she was awesome.
Her role? What are you talking about?
Sorry, the time traveler. Yes, she convinced me that she was a time traveler.
Yeah, she was awesome. She was wicked cool. She was great, and all the kids got to drive the duck.
So that was the big bonus in the middle of the.
Once it went out onto the Charles River.
Yep. She let the kids each take a turn actually steering the duck.
Yeah,
and that
was way cool.
Yeah, that was really cool
way
moment
fun
for them.
Yeah. All right. So another activity we did, I mentioned that we were down by the Red Sox Stadium and we were checking it out and we were excited with all the fervor. And then we decided for the end of the day that we would go candlepin bowling. This was also suggested to us by those two friends we made on the airplane. Now, candlepin bowling is different than, your standard 10-pin bowling.
Yep. So we're from the Midwest and I only thought there was one kind of bowling. But it turns out when bowling was invented, it was invented in Boston.
Yeah.
So if anytime you go bowling, know that originated in Boston, and there are big arguments about which method of bowling is the true method, right? And so a lot of Bostonians believe that candlepin bowling is the proper way to bowl. And so the biggest difference is similar to 10-pin bowling like we have here in the Midwest. The pins themselves are shaped like candle pins, and they're a lot harder to knock over because you're using lighter balls. They're almost like skee balls, so they're much smaller, and they don't have finger holes. And you toss them down there like you would a skee ball. And I don't think anyone's ever gotten a perfect game.
So technically, the way I describe it is you want to use the force of a skee ball and the precision of, I can't remember, but I put this description on our YouTube video of us playing candlepin bowling, and I was corrected by a expert candlepin bowler, and there is a lot of technique to it. Now, little known fact, Gabriel here is a very skilled bowler. He has his own pair of shoes and his own bowling ball, and he's very good. He's got this hook technique down, and he really struggled with candlepin bowling because you don't spin it and it doesn't do what you want. I don't know how you can become skilled at this because it really just feels like this tiny ball you can hold in your hand like this, and you just lob it down.
Well, I think it's kind of like softball.
There you go, softball and skee ball put together.
You have those softball pitchers, and I can't do it, but they those in softball, they wind up and they throw it like a bazillion miles an hour. You can see people in the neighboring lanes just hucking it down there and knocking these pins down. But you get 3 tries instead of 2, And it's great. We had so much fun doing it.
So when we go bowling as a family here at home, in our home base, I always come in last. Literally, the kids do better than I do. The 4-year-old does better than I do. But at candlepin bowling, I won.
Rockstar.
I was awesome. Yeah. So if you're going to ask me what kind of bowling I like, I'm going to go with candlepin all the way. It was so much fun, and we really enjoyed it. And our kids loved it. They talk about it all the time. And it was a lot of really, really, really good fun.
And it was something that I had no clue.
Yeah, we had no idea it existed.
Even existed. So candlepin bowling, do it.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so another one of our stops was the Curious George toy store. It's the only Curious George toy store in the entire world.
And I'm curious as to why that might be.
So it has about 90% Curious George merchandise. Tons of books, tons of stuffed animals. It's got a man in the yellow hat. Just all sorts of really, really fun stuff. And then it's got 10% of other little knickknacks and things to do. Like we mentioned, it was Claire's birthday.
Yep.
And so we ended up getting her a book by Sandra Boynton. If you're a parent, you probably know who she is. She writes the books about hippos, belly buttons, but she wrote this really cute book called Eek Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Her little 4-year-old has it memorized. It's the darling book. But we ended up getting that at the Curious George toy store. But there is just so much fun stuff to do, and it's not that small. It's actually a pretty good size, so they filled it up with a lot of really fun merchandise.
I'd say it's medium size. I didn't say it was large. It's not like FAA Schwartz, right?
No.
FAA Schwartz. It's like it's not a tiny spot. I'd say it's 2 tiny spots put together.
Yeah. Well, it's not like you can walk. It's not a walk-in closet, all right? Like,
but they have a lot of like educational toys and stuff. So I think I probably researched it back in the day, but I think the Curious George books were written there, right? Do you know?
Oh, written at that location? No,
well,
I have no idea. Oh, I don't know.
I'd be curious.
That would be... I'm curious as well.
Curious. I'll look it up. I think you actually did a blog post on it.
I did, but I didn't know about that.
You need to research.
It's a great blog post. It's near Sweet Bakery if you have a hankering for cupcakes and you want to prove us wrong. It's also near Harvard. So Harvard was one of the fun activities we did as a family.
Yeah, so if you're a big Curious George fan... and you're even a minor fan of toy stores, then this is the place to go.
You know, it's a unique store. I mean, it's going to be one of the most unique toy stores you're going to go to because, first of all, it's the only one in the world, and it's pretty much only got Curious George merchandise. So it's definitely worth a stop. If you're in Boston, you're going to want to go to Harvard, so you should just take a peek in. We definitely think it's worth it.
So not to downplay it, but it's kind of like going to the largest McDonald's in the world.
No, that was hideous. That was horrible. That's in Florida, by the way, Orlando.
But you go to say you did.
No, I would never do that again. And I have no interest in bragging about that. But the Curious George bookstore or toy store was worthwhile.
They have pizza ovens in the biggest McDonald's.
The merchandise was really overpriced at the Curious George toy store, and McDonald's was just garbage.
Okay, hey.
Oh, come on. It was so loud. Even the kids didn't want to be in there.
You're totally offending the clown. Okay.
The McDonald's, not to go off track, but the McDonald's had a very large playground, and our kids beg all the time to go to playgrounds, and they didn't even want to be there.
Okay. Oh, that's because the kids were mean. Okay. So Curious George. Check it out. It's got it's a neat little place.
All right. So it's right by Harvard Square. The Harvard, which we haven't taken our kids on a college trip yet. They're 8 years old. They were 7 at the time.
Yep.
But it was their very first college visit. MIT came to a close second. But it was really cool being at Harvard for one very specific reason.
There's one TV show that's been probably the most influential
Influential?
Yeah.
Well, how did it
had a huge
influence
impact
us?
because we watched it a lot. Was Fringe. And as you know, as everyone should know, the laboratory that Walter Bishop worked in was in the basement of Harvard.
The laboratory he defeated the observers in, which was at Harvard.
Which once we went to Harvard and took a tour and perused the place, we found out it was a big fat lie that they actually filmed it in Cambridge, the basement of Cambridge.
So absurd. I'm furious about it.
Well, I don't think they actually filmed it in
I thought they filmed it in New York.
No, the images they used were from Cambridge, I'm pretty sure.
Ugh. So obscene.
Because I think...
Such a big lie.
So the brick buildings they showed in Fringe were actually Cambridge and not Harvard.
Peter, Walter, and Olivia, listen, I love you. You have clearly influenced our lives.
We just rewatched. We binged.
But
all 5
that's
seasons.
unforgivable.
Okay, so Harvard University.
It was really cool.
We also got to touch the shoe of
The
John
shoe,
Harvard.
yes, not the likeness of John Harvard, but somebody they say is John Harvard.
Yeah.
It's a fun story about that. You can also find that on our blog. Just basically, they don't know who John Harvard looks like, so they made it up. But if you rub his shoe, you will get good luck.
Yep. But so as far as the Harvard campus goes, TLDR, it is a bunch of buildings. It's a college campus.
It was fun. It was neat. It was neat to see. You can do a whole tour. You can go into all the buildings. You can go check out the library. It's beautiful. There's gorgeous, trees that are hundreds of years old. I loved it. I thought it was cool.
I felt smarter just being there.
Yeah, me too.
Like my IQ took a couple jumps.
Yeah, and then I thought, if my kids want to go here, we'll leave it at that. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, the whole reason we went to Boston, of course, was to learn about American history. Yep. And so one of the biggest things that we did, and this did take over 2 days to do, but was the Freedom Trail.
Yep. Freedom of 76.
And it was awesome. I was gonna sing, freedom, freedom.
I was gonna sing.
So the Freedom Trail was fantastic. It was so much fun. We learned a ton, multiple world schooling opportunities, great food along the Freedom Trail, tons of stuff to do. Check out podcast number 7 and you'll find out all about it.
If you go to Boston and the only thing you go do is the Freedom Trail, totally worth it.
100%.
Enough said. Check out.
That's math problem for you.
Check out podcast number 7.
Yes. Speaking of podcast number 7, also check out podcast number 8 and you'll hear all about Boston Public Market. Boston Public Market was one of our favorite stops, not only because it was right on the subway line that we took to get back to our hotel, but it had tons of great food and exciting places to visit and eat. And it had tons of different, it was very eclectic. You could get fudge, you could get ice cream, you could get lobster, you could get pastrami, you could get all sorts of different places to eat. You could shop different vendors. They were all local. They were
all things Boston.
All sourced. Yeah.
Check it out.
Way fun. All right. And then Quincy Market is Faneuil Hall. It's a lot like Boston Public Market. It's got local vendors. It's one of the original sites along the Freedom Trail where vendors used to come and sell their wares back in the 1700s and the 1800s. And they're still doing it today at the turn of the new century. And it's a lot of fun. And it's very lively. They have a really colorful piano there that patrons can come and play. It's got a big round square with an upper layer and you can look down, and it's got a lot of old history and it's way fun.
Yeah, so not only really good food there, like our favorite lobster rolls were there, but as well as lots of souvenirs and those kind of things you can buy there.
Yeah, just it's fun history, fun local and past, local culture, past history all combined and rolled into one. And it's a lot of fun to go to both those places, Boston Public Market and Quincy Markets.
So we hope you enjoyed our list of family activities.
Our singing.
Yeah. If that makes it to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed our list of family activities. If there's anything.
Tons of world schooling opportunities. We talked specifically about world schooling along the Freedom Trail, but all of these are awesome world schooling opportunities too. We abide by the philosophy that, there's never an end to your education, and learning facts about history is just as important as learning about the fun, the ways that people used to have fun. So we totally rank candlepin bowling up there on great world schooling activities. Candlepin bowling doesn't have any automated scoring. So that's a great place to go and learn and practice math skills, is that you have to do all your own scoring on your own. When you go candlepin bowling, the duck tour is obviously going to give you tons of factual historical facts and maybe even some future facts, because you find out some things that happen in the future that we haven't experienced yet.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite world schooling opportunities?
Well, I think MFA obviously is a big one. Learning about the master's art, seeing a lot of artwork that some of your favorite artists produce that you haven't seen yet. It's pretty phenomenal. Man, I think the top of my list was Curious George Toy Store.
For world schooling?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, they have a huge selection of books. So we always like to get a book of the trip. So that's a great place to get one. We ended up getting the Ducklings book.
Yeah.
Make Way for Ducklings.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
I forgot about
historical book that they wrote about Boston and the Boston Common. And that's one of the books we got. So that's a great world schooling opportunity as well. But there are tons. I mean, you say Boston, you automatically connect that to the founding of America. So if you go to Boston and you can't find ways to world school, that's just silly. Don't put that in. So going to Boston is automatically connected to American history. So you don't even have to try. And you've just done an awesome field trip just by going there and seeing the place where it all happens. So have fun on your trip to Boston. We hope that you liked hearing about all the places that we went and that they'll help you along on your plans and your travels. And we will look forward to seeing you next week. We're doing something just a little bit different. We're letting somebody else take over our podcast main session. And that someone or someones will be revealed next week.
It's going to be amazing.
All right, and it's going to be all about the number 8. It's going to be brought to you by the number 8. So definitely stay tuned next week to learn all about the number 8, and we will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this if you like the content here. You can find us on all social channels, and don't forget to check out our blog at www.diapersonaplane.com.
Bye-bye.